Hello everyone and welcome to today's session. My name is Tom Rankin from Plan International Australia. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, in the various locations that we all are, and pay my respect to all elders past, present and emerging. I'm going to play a video for the next 15 minutes of a bunch of different presentations, and then we will see you back for a discussion and some surveys. So see you in 15 minutes.
On behalf of Plan International, I'm very happy to welcome all of you to this session and thank you for joining us today. Inclusive quality education has been one of the most critical focus areas for us at Plan International, as it is a fundamental child right and there are lifelong benefits of good education, which most likely result in making informed career and life choices. We believe that schools also play a most critical role in creating inclusive, resilient communities. We have seen how children have been instrumental as change agents in promoting resilient communities. This session later today will explore critical connectors of gender equitable, accessible WASH in schools and building community resilience. I would like to thank the conveners of this session, Water for Women, Live and Learn, and Plan International Australia. Water for Women is Australian government's flagship WASH program and is being delivered as part of Australia's aid program. I would also like to thank our implementing partner, Live and Learn. The project examples in this session are taken from an Australian aid initiative implemented by Plan International Australia in partnership with Live and Learn Environmental Education on behalf of Australian government. I would specially like to acknowledge PNG and Solomon Island country teams from both Plan and Live and Learn. I wish all of you an interesting session and looking forward to your engagement and contribution with ideas, recommendations, and questions. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Michelle Abel. I work with Live and Learn Environmental Education to support WASH in schools activities across the South Pacific. We're excited today to be able to highlight the voices of our committed staff and school partners in sharing how WASH in schools builds resilience. Schools are important hubs in the community. They're often proud community assets, a central place for meetings and for community events. They provide shelter in emergencies, and in many countries they are the dedicated emergency facilities for a community. They also provide structure and opportunities for children. These are all foundations of a resilient community. Live and Learn commenced WASH in schools work in the South Pacific several years ago, utilising the UniStaff three-star standard concept that came from the Philippines. We have produced a series of resources that can be used by government officials, school leadership, teachers and students to work through incremental improvements to the provision of water, sanitation facilities and promotion of hygiene practices in schools. These resources are all freely available and you can download them from the Live and Learn website. In the beginning, when we started our work with schools, we were working mostly at a grassroots level with staff and students in local communities, while also advocating for national water and sanitation standards. Partners such as UNICEF were working at the higher level with schools, education ministries in countries working on school policies and standards. And now it's been wonderful to see over the last 5 years how these two grassroots and top-down approaches have come together to form a much more resilient WASH in schools sectoral environment. This is a positive step in the path to resilience, but a significant challenge remains in the provision of adequate water and sanitation and hygiene facilities at school. Access remains a major problem. Most schools simply cannot generate enough income through their own planning or their own fundraising to construct the infrastructure that is actually needed to meet the minimum national standards, particularly for toilets. Severe weather events are increasing due to climate change, and in countries across the South Pacific, governments can't keep up with the repairs that are required to school infrastructure after significant events such as tropical cyclones. COVID-19 has also impacted the Wash in Schools program across all of the countries where we work. It has impacted with children having to remain home from school or disrupting school learning, but it has also had a significant impact on the construction of hand washing facilities and the promotion of careful hand washing, which was something that has always been part of the Wash in Schools program. And the COVID-19 responses and promotions have been a great strength for hand washing promotion. Research with school leaders, teachers, parents and students show that children's education remains one of the highest priorities for a family. And there's a significant commitment at a school level to provide high quality learning environments that also include making the schools healthy places for students. This is all contributing to strengthened resilience at schools, but it highlights the importance of Wash in School programs to be supported by good policies and standards, but also the design and construction of appropriate climate resilient infrastructure.
I'm Lucebula and I'm from the western part of the Solomon Islands. I worked as a WASH project officer for the New Times New Target project and the Live and Learn in partnership with Plan Internationals. Gender and social inclusion activities in the Solomon Islands remain a new and controversial subject despite continuous efforts to raise the level of awareness in the rural communities. Schools provide the perfect platform for gender and social inclusion because of the neutrality of its learning environment. Some 6,000 boys and girls in rural Guadalcanal are part of the New Times New Targets efforts to raise gender and social inclusion awareness, and the results are incredible. Within 2 years of implementation, the schools now see not only women and girls, but men and boys advocating for menstrual health and general hygiene. A key platform that we use mainly to engage with schools is global days, such as Menstrual Health and Hygiene Days. Such days are filled with awareness-raising, quizzes, showcasing of menstrual hygiene products, and practical hand-washing sessions. We also engage teachers and students to participate in WASH training to increase the knowledge to become WASH advocates in schools and communities. Through WASH Global Day celebrations, communities have the opportunity to listen to awareness talks done by WASH committee teachers and WASH club member students to trigger behavior change in the communities. For example, students requesting parents to build proper toilet and hand-washing facilities in their homes. Not only that, but understanding issues related to lack of information on menstrual hygiene. Communities have accepted open discussion on menstrual hygiene topic despite of cultural taboos. By involving communities in such program, they have come to realize and understand gender issues.
This time, I'm different now after awareness of the girls also come attending classes freely despite of menstruation blockade or come attending classes. And also, to come forward freely for us for advices and so as for materials time or in need during time long menstruation blockade. So as boys too, or to stop teasing of the girls because what the got them understanding that menstruation is natural and him normal.
Hi, I'm Cecilia from Live and Learn Environmental Education, Papua New Guinea. The WINS program is a new concept to most teachers, students, and school stakeholders, but it is now gaining momentum where teachers are now teaching health in structured lessons using teaching resources that are provided by Live and Learn. And also students' WASH clubs that are formed are timetabled for an hour weekly. Teachers are also well equipped in knowledge or with knowledge through the TOT WASH trainings that are conducted in the different WASH topics. To support and strengthen resilient WASH in schools, the project is now captured and prioritized into the school sleep budget, and it's reviewed after every 5 years by the School Board of Management. So all schools now have a school wash committee established to oversee and monitor all wash facilities and help to raise funds for operation and maintenance of school wash facilities. Live and Learn has also trained and built the capacity of its school wash committees to formulate three very important documents, which are the wash improvement plan, the operation maintenance plan, and the school wash policy to sustain wash in schools. And during wash global events, teachers and students invite the nearby communities to come with sanitation products like slab and razors, soap made from herbs, which the mothers come and do sales there, as well as other products like pot plants or molded hand washing basins or sinks, other like a model of a compost toilet, which are put on display, just to give more awareness on people living along the coast to build compost toilet. So even with a lot of challenges we are facing, we'll put a lot more effort and hopefully achieve 100% wash coverage according to the Papua New Guinea National Government wash policy in the 23 schools where Live and Learn is working with.
Hi there, everyone. Greetings to you. I'm Mr. Noah Benson, a senior teacher here at my own primary school in New Island, Papua New Guinea. Since the inception of the Live and Learn organization and the programs they're running in my own primary school, I would say that students and teachers' participation is 100%. It has driven that confidence in students to take pride, and has also contributed in gender participation between students, especially the boys. The students learned about menstrual hygiene, health and other hygiene behaviors in school, and it has contributed also academically to the achievement of our students in the school. The programs that we run here in school has already also influenced the community at large. When they go back to the community, they encourage their parents. Hey, look, we have to wash our hands before we eat. They become agents of change.
My name is Claudia Dallet, and I'm a water sanitation and hygiene officer with Plan International PNG. We would see sector strengthening as working collaboratively with Department of Education, Department of Health, the political members of Autonomous Region of Bougainville, with Department of Education as the leading agency in was in school. We have been collecting was in schools data to understand school was status across the region. With the usage of the M-Water application, we have been feeding that into the national monitoring system. With the baseline data that we have collected, we are supporting the development of the North Bougainville District Wash Plan that we are trying to come up with, and that includes wash in schools and establishing a roadmap to achieve the local and national targets within the country and in Bougainville. We also been engaging the District Development Authority, the DDA, and the political members to help and assist fund some of the wash infrastructure in the schools that we are targeting. And we also have been working with the WAS committee in the schools that we are targeting, and they have been fully participating and taking part in improving WAS in their school. Recently, we have been conducting the TOT trainings. That's training of trainers for the teachers to help them improve and understand what WAS is and how they can prioritize WAS in their schools. So we're doing it collaboratively with the PNCs and the Board of Management, Department of Education, Department of Health, the political members, the district development authorities to help us do and strengthen the sector, and so that we can work collaboratively to improve WAS in school here in the autonomous regional program.
Our achievement so far with the assistance for WAS program in the school, I should really thank and say that we have achieved so far 70% of our programs in the school regarding WAS facilities.
Wash with soap today. Scrub, scrub, scrub your hands. Rinse your hands today. Dry, dry, dry well dry. Dry well dry today. Dry, dry, dry well dry. Dry well dry today. High five. Nice.
Hi, sorry about that. I think my colleague Tom has dropped off and he was going to start talking to you after the video. So I hope you enjoyed the video. We've got a Mentimeter that we'd like you to participate with. I hope some of you are familiar with using Menti. If you see in the chat, there'll be a link there to the menti.com, and then there's also a code. And the first question that we'd like you to respond to is, what do you think are the most critical aspects of a WASH in Schools program that best contributes to community resilience? So while you're filling in that, thinking about that, we're looking for, a word, 2 or 3 words, because this will generate as a word cloud. And I think I can welcome Tom back, who's my colleague in our WASH in Schools program. And if Tom's ready, he can have it while we're seeing these words come up. Tom is going to have a chat to Lucia.
Thank you, Michelle. Sorry, unfortunately, my computer decided to die right at a crucial moment. Lucia, while we're waiting for those words to come in, we were just really interested to hear from you a couple of key reflections about the impact of your WASH in Schools work and any feedback you've been hearing from community members and how it's building broader community resilience.
Thank you very much, Tom, and thank you, listeners out there. I would like to share one of the WAS impacts on behavior change and hygiene practices, especially on hand washing with soap. Now, in schools, teachers taught hygiene toward sicknesses and also through global hand washing days. We all involved teachers and students and committees to participate in activities such as poem singing, awareness talks and demonstration on hand washing, and 5 steps on hand washing. Yes, hand washing steps. And then, since children are the drivers of change, whatever they've learned in the schools, they'll share back with their parents and in their homes. Like, for example, a parent shared a story of their daughter who asked their parent to build a simple hand washing station at their homes, and she also encouraged her cousins and family relatives to always practice hand washing at their homes. And this helped parents to realize that hand washing is one of the important aspects in health. Thank you, Tom. Back to you.
Thanks, Lucia. I can see we've got all sorts of different responses coming in the chat there. People saying students participating with pride, adapting awareness raising programs to the local context, especially given the different COVID contexts that we have in different places, community empowerment.
One of the questions that are coming through also on the screen and also in the chat there is about behaviour change and translating knowledge into practice, which is of course the holy grail question that we know is important. But one of the things we've learned in our experience in the cultural context we're in is repetition of the message, but in ways that actually link to the behaviour drivers of the different audiences. So in the student WASH clubs, there's repetition in creative ways and songs, as well as the students do their own sort of arts for advocacy activities. But with the teachers and with parents, we identify different drivers in different ways, and then we have the same consistent messages, and then we are seeing some good translation. Tom, do you want to introduce the second question for our mentee?
Sure. So this second question is really about you as the participants, and we're keen to know what you've taken away from those short presentations and how, what you've taken away that you can apply to your work. So you should see that question in the Menti now, and please feel free to make some responses.
And while those responses are coming up, I wanted to get Lucia, who you might have recognised her voice from the first section in the video. She works very closely with all of our schools in Solomon Islands. And Lucia, can you tell us a bit more about the menstrual hygiene program in the schools and what you've seen, some of the changes you've seen there?
Thank you, Michelle. And I would like to share one of the impacts on menstruation hygiene in communities that I've worked in. In our cultural practice, menstruation is one of the sensitive topics, and people are not feel free to talk about it in the communities. But since school is one of the best avenue to learn, and children are able to learn a lot of information about menstruation. Sorry. And children, especially on girls, they educate girls to understand menstruation is not a sickness and is normal part of growing up for girls, and there is nothing to be ashamed of. And through the Global Menstrual Hygiene Day, girls feel free to step up and come forward from their comfort zone. And this has increased their knowledge of change in behavior and to build resilience on practices on this kind of sensitive issues. Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks, Lucia. It's really great to get your insights. See lots of fantastic responses in the Menti survey. There's someone agreeing that the UNICEF 3-star approach really works, and we definitely feel like it gets some local ownership happening, which is, I think, a common thread in a couple of the comments, that local ownership is key, as is including a variety of local stakeholders. There was a comment referencing the engagement of principals, which I think is also a critical one and something that we certainly focus on in our work, as well as engaging the Parent Teachers Association and the broader community in schools. It's reference there to boys and MHM, and definitely I think engaging boys and male teachers, as well as girls and women in the discussion around menstrual health is really critical thing to WASH in schools programs, but also in building broader community resilience, as Lucy has alluded to in her presentation. What else do we have here? Hygiene programs have hardly changed over the years. If we keep doing the same things as now, we'll get the same inadequate, unsustainable results. I think that's certainly true that there's lots of hygiene awareness campaigns, and it's important to try and look beyond that and start thinking about what drives and motivates people to change behaviours and sustain them. And I think through the work that we do in training teachers and working with communities and schools in menstrual health certainly heads in that direction and tries to take things to a new level. Michelle, have you got a few questions from the chat?
Well, because the clock is ticking on us, I've been answering some of the questions in the chat while you've been talking. So I apologise if I looked a little vague with my eyes there, but yeah, with some good questions about getting teachers on board and also about inclusion for women and girls with disabilities. And the teachers, yes, teachers are key, but we also have to be careful we don't burden the teachers, because in the South Pacific, teachers get asked to do everything in the community and lead out on many things. And some of our teachers have expressed that they're really committed to WASH in schools, but it's hard to fit it in with all the other things that they're asked to do as well.
Fantastic. Were there any others, Michelle? I reckon we've got time for one more quick question if there was one.
There's one more last question about promoting dry sanitation in schools, and that's throwing in a whole other seminar, and I actually think it's very important. There is a cultural expectation or aspiration for, you know, Western style water flush toilets, and yeah, it's very important. I think from an environmental perspective, we also should be looking at dry sanitation here in Australia and other places, but I think that that one is definitely needs to be parked for another seminar.
I can say that we do have some trials happening with
composting toilets,
with dry toilets and urine diversion toilets and the like, and we're very much proponents of that. But there is something to be said for getting sanitation installed and being used in the context where you're working. So with that, unfortunately, we have only a 30-minute session. So unfortunately, we are already due for drawing to a close. And we want to thank everyone very much for joining the session. I hope you found something useful in it and can see that WASH in schools is an important contribution to building community resilience. And that, I guess, we certainly see that that's because schools are such an integral part of all of the communities where we work. It's places where children learn to be leaders, where communities congregate to interact and to support their children. And often in many countries, places where communities seek refuge during emergencies. And as such, schools are a critical component of any campaign to build community resilience, both in the short term and for the future. What can we do through WASH in schools to strengthen community resilience? I think we can do a lot, and I think that starts with improving WASH understanding, obviously of teachers and of students, with some hope that that gets transferred back to households. We can build stronger connections between communities and schools through the likes of parent-teacher associations, and between communities within a school catchment. We can challenge social norms by, through our student WASH clubs, even through our school management committees that oversee WASH, and through the likes of menstrual health activities, as we've discussed. We can strengthen the system by getting schools to better understand how the broader system works and how to interact with that, and what their role is within that. And I think inherently that builds local ownership and empowerment. And I guess one thing that jumps to mind, obviously, when we talk about WASH in schools is infrastructure, and building resilient infrastructure for all of the reasons we've discussed is a really critical thing, and to think about future scenarios such as climate, and also the availability of materials and the sustainability of the materials that are used and the approaches that are taken, as per Matt's question about dry toilets and using water wisely. And on that, I guess, just generally to maximise that connection and the synergies between Plan and Live and Learn's WASH work, we've been trying to replicate a cycle of assess, plan, act and monitor throughout our WASH in schools projects, but also in our work with communities through a community-led water security improvement planning process, and also in our WASH in healthcare facilities work. And the idea being that some continuity and similarities in approaches builds some understanding across those domains, and then
Did we lose Tom again? Or did our session end? if we are still live, this is some of our Washington Schools resources. And this is our point where we say thank you. And all of these resources are available on the Live and Learn website. And thank you for joining us today.